So hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream session where we are going to present newly released Business Services Report in Latvia 2021. My name is Monta, Geidane, and I'm representing ABSL Latvia, which is an association for global business service leaders here in our country. Already for a second year, we are quite strong partner for business services community here in our country. The things that we are doing, we are building strong ties with government officials, also with higher education institutions. Of course, we are also creating a platform for industry members to exchange knowledge and some kind of experiences. Another thing that we are doing, we are building awareness among last year's students, graduates, and also other professionals about the industry and opportunities that it brings to new professionals. And the last but not least, of course, we are releasing annual business services report in Latvia. And thanks to Investment and Development Agency of Latvia, without their support, it wouldn't be possible. And thanks to them, because already for a second year, we have released the report, which helps us to compare the data and see the change. But now let's have a quick look at today's agenda. So first of all, we will start with my presentation, and I will give you the findings of the survey that we carried out in the beginning of 2021. So it mainly reflects the situation of 2020 and will give you some kind of development plans for the industry for 2021. After that, we will welcome Lelde Kalniņa from Fontes Latvia, and Lelde will present a topic of pay and benefits change. We have also invited ERDA, and ERDA is a well-known employer branding agency in Latvia. And Zana Čulkstena will tell us more about employee reskilling and upskilling efforts and what organizations can do in order to improve the overall situation. Of course, today we will also cover a topic of office market, and therefore we have invited our strategic partner Colliers, and Eriks Bergmanis will tell us more what's going to happen in office market in our country. We will also tell you a little bit more about AI-powered language technologies. Therefore, we have invited Ruben Martinez from Tilde. And the last but not least, we will also tell you a little bit more about the changes in site selection process, meaning how global organizations will look at those questions in future, considering the fact that pandemic has somehow impacted the ways how global organizations are selecting locations and thinking about setting up operations in one or another country. But yes, now let's start with the business services report itself. So this year, 23 organizations participated in our survey, and they are employing something around 7,000 employees in Latvia. This is almost half of the whole industry, but we truly believe that this is appropriate extent of data, allowing us to come up with some kind of conclusions how the industry is growing and evolving in Latvia. And of course, we are really hopefully believe that with every passing year we will have a growing number of those organizations that are willing to participate in our survey, thus giving us a chance to come up with more reliable and with more precise data, which helps you to know a little bit more how the industry is growing in Latvia. And before we start to look at the data, I also wanted to say that please use the business services report wisely, because it is an incredibly useful tool. This is something where you can find all the answers in those cases when you have those discussions with headquarters, with your group companies, when there is a need to overtake some kind of business service function. You can be a strong ambassador of Latvia. You just have to have all the answers, and Business Services Report is something that can provide you all the answers and all the arguments why Latvia is a great location for expanding existing business service centers, for transforming existing business service centers into next centers of excellence. So everything is possible. You just have to use the information wisely and achieve the targets that you have. But now let's have a look at the data. So the first slide illustrates the countries of origin of business service organizations based in Latvia. And here we can see that 44% of all organizations that participated in our survey, they have their headquarters in Nordic countries. So it means Latvia is still a top chosen location by Nordic countries, and nothing much has changed here. And of course, as Scandinavians are highly valuing close geographical proximity, quite similar cultural traits, also our people eagerness to even learn their local language so that we can serve their clients. All those things are highly appreciated by Scandinavians. And of course, I cannot miss the opportunity to once again remind you that ABSL Latvia also provide a program where we co-finance exactly Scandinavian training courses covering up to 70% of all costs. This is European Regional Development Funding Program, and here we finance not English, not Spanish or French language courses, but exactly Scandinavian language courses, considering the fact that the footprint of Nordic countries with operations in Latvia is growing every year. And a great example is that in 2020, also there was a new company that entered over market, which was Norwegian Air Resources. Okay, but now let's have a quick look at the headcount and what are the changes there. Most probably, many of you have a question in your mind: how has the pandemic impacted our industry? Whether the organizations were forced to dismiss their employees, and if yes, then to what extent? And this bar chart shows that there has been actually an impact how the pandemic has changed the industry. And in 2020, we can see that there were less companies who were actually able to increase the employment if we are comparing the data of 2019. And at the same time, we can see growing number of those organizations who were forced to dismiss their employees, so 20%. But what is promising about this slide, that when we asked, okay, maybe 2020 wasn't that promising year, but what are your plans for 2021? Then organizations said that they are actually planning again to increase deployment, and 70% of all respondents are planning to increase the employment, which is the same percentage that we faced in pre-pandemic year 2019. And here we can also see incredibly low percentage when it comes to those companies who are planning to actually decrease the employment, only 4%. Incredibly lower percentage if we are comparing even to pre-pandemic year, which was 2019. So the situation is promising. We are already in the middle of year, and I truly believe that companies are already increasing their employment, creating new jobs, and the plans that they had in the beginning of year, they are happening right now. Now let's have a quick look also at the structure of employment by business functions. We all know that the three most popular business service functions in Latvia are IT, finance and accounting, and customer service, and this is nothing surprising. Those are also quite the most popular business service functions, not only in Europe, but also across other popular business service locations in Europe. And what is interesting here, we can see that customer service as a function has decreased by 8% in 2020. And of course, I might guess that it's happened due to COVID, because of course, COVID somehow impacted the several businesses. And in those cases, of course, the customer service department was the first that was affected. And here we can also see that other business service functions that we can see in our business service centers are HR, HR, banking, finance and insurance, research and development, logistics, procurement, marketing, document management. But those, each of them are making up to 4% of whole business services, let's say, functions portfolio. So it means that there are only few companies where we can see the procurement or logistics departments, and if we have such departments, then only few of the people are employed there, if we are comparing with, let's say, IT departments where we can see hundreds of professionals. And if we are looking at this bar chart, which illustrates the employment structure by categories of positions or seniority level, at first it might seem that nothing much has changed here if we are comparing 2-year data. But if we look carefully, we can see that actually entry-level positions has slightly decreased, while we can see also a slight increase in more senior level specialists. And what does it mean? It actually means that the industry is getting more mature in Latvia, and we have managed to automate and robotize, let's say, repetitive tasks, low value added functions, and we have managed to overtake more advanced, some kind of responsibilities or services. And of course, accordingly, we need more experienced talent pool for that. Of course, foreigners is another topic, and employing foreigners in business service centers. This is especially hot topic for companies that are recruiting IT professionals. It's not a surprise that sometimes it's a little bit challenging to find some kind of IT talents in our market with some kind of specific knowledge. And in those cases, especially when we are talking about high-level IT specialists, and in those cases, companies are looking for talents in other countries. And the bar chart shows quite sharp growth in employees, foreign employees employed from different kind of countries. And here I must say that when it comes to countries like Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and India, those are typical countries where companies look for IT talent. And when it comes to Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, this is only because of the Nordic countries' footprint, and I wouldn't say that this is a targeted recruitment. This is usually the case when, let's say, some kind of Norwegian or a Swedish students are coming to Latvia for studying purposes, and then they partially are ready to also work for one or another business service center. And of course, companies can benefit of that because they don't have to invest any money into some kind of language courses. And if we're looking at the proportion of foreigners employed by business service centers, then we can see that it has increased by 1% in 2020 compared to the last year. And here I must say again, thanks to Investment and Development Agency of Latvia and their new initiative, that they have recently launched the Green Corridor Principle, which allows for the global business service centers that have some kind of larger expansion plans to receive this fast track services in those cases when they want to acquire EU blue cards, work permits for high-level professionals coming from third countries. And of course, when we are talking about business service centers and about industry as such, it's never been the case that we are talking about, let's say, foreign capital companies that are coming into Latvia and then they just decide to work with the local market. No, we are talking about global companies that have their operations, let's say, at least in 3 countries, or in most of the cases, they are working all over the world, and then they decide to set up operations in Latvia and, let's say, to use our talent and our skills to serve customers all over the world. And it doesn't matter whether those are their group companies or unrelated entities. So, and here we can see that, of course, it's not a surprise that 76% of our business service organizations are working with Nordic countries. We can also see that we are quite actively working with Western Europe, Central and Eastern Europe. And here we can see 14% of growth in 2020 compared to the year before. Also quite actively we are represented in United States. So almost half of the industry is working with United States and providing services to group companies based in United States. And also we can see a growth here of 10% in the last year. And also a few of the companies are working with more exotic geographical regions such as Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa, and also Latin America. Of course, many of you may have a question in your mind: what's going to happen with business service centers in next 12 months? Whether the industry is ready actually to expand their functions and to expand their operations in our country. And here we can see really good news, because 78%, great majority of all respondents are saying that actually basically in 2021 they are planning to take over new services and serve new geographical regions, or even both. So the majority of organizations are planning to expand their operations in Latvia, which means creating new jobs and also building the overall role of the business service center in whole organization. 13% of respondents are saying that no, they actually don't have any plans to change the current scope of activities, which means that they plan to stabilize their operations here in Latvia in 2021. And 9% of respondents unfortunately are saying that they will reduce the scope of activities or geography served from our country in 2021. Of course, another quite interesting topic that everyone wants to hear about is about foreign languages used by the industry to serve clients. And here we can see that the first place goes to English language, and this was the same also last year. And of course, there isn't a chance that someone will be hired by Business Service Center if you don't know the English language, because all the internal systems are being held in English, all the communication is being held in English, and even though if you have to work with, let's say, Norwegian or some kind of Nordic countries, and you know this specific foreign language, you still have to know English as well. Here we can also see that quite many companies require also Norwegian, Swedish languages. We can see 8% growth of those companies that are requiring German language skills, and here we can also see decrease in certain languages such as Russian, Italian and Lithuanian. And here I must say that also several business process outsourcing companies also participated in our survey, and we know that this is a normal practice, that they have client portfolio which is changing quite frequently, and this is a normal case that maybe in the beginning of year they didn't need anymore, maybe they lost a client that required some kind of Lithuanian or let's say Italian language speakers, but it still is possible that in next months they got a new client and again they need those languages. So I would say that this bar chart is changing quite quickly, considering this fact that we also have a business process operations companies that work with clients, and the clients' portfolio are changing quite frequently. Yes, of course, a business services industry is all about talent and all about the availability of talent and competition in the labor market. Therefore, we also included this question in our survey. Basically, how do organizations feel when it comes to competition in labor market? And here I must say that the situation has improved. We can see that in 2020 there were significantly less companies who were saying that the competition is actually high and it's difficult to find talent. So only 35% of respondents are saying this, while there has been a growth in those companies who are saying that actually competition is not high and the situation is more or less acceptable. So it means that the overall situation is getting better, and it might happen due to the fact that COVID impacted also several and other industries more, and they were there were organizations that were forced to dismiss their employees, and of course the labor market became bigger and larger, and there were of course business service centers could benefit of that and it was much easier to find the talents with the skills that they need. And we couldn't look at the competition in labor market if we are not looking at turnover rates as well. And let's start with the voluntary turnover rate. And voluntary turnover rate show us the percentage of those people who are intentionally decide to leave the company and look for another job. And we can see that in 2020, the percentage of those people has decreased by 6%, which is quite a significant decrease. And I would say that it happened due to the fact that many people felt more cautious about making such decisions, because of course changing the job, it usually includes some kind of risk to become unemployed. So it was more safe to stay with the previous the previous employer. And when it comes to involuntary turnover rate, we can see that it has increased only by 1% in 2020, despite of the COVID impact on industry, especially on customer service departments. I just wanted to slightly touch upon the question of diversity and inclusion policies in business service centers. And the thing that I wanted to stress here, that in 2020, there is no such company in business service centers that is saying that they don't take care of diversity and inclusion, some kind of questions in their organizations. So 70% or majority of the respondents are saying that they are having some kind of formal diversity inclusion policy in their organizations. And the rest of respondents are saying that they have at least formal awareness on how employees should behave, how they should interact with each other. And this is a really good sign that business service centers are taking care of their employees, and it's happening across whole industry in Latvia. And for the first year, we also included a question of salaries in our survey. It was just, we were really curious what's going on. Of course, this survey is based only on the answers provided by 23 companies, but still it gave us at least insights what's really happening and how the things are changing. And of course, it's nothing surprising that the thing that we did, we took three most popular business service functions, so IT, customer care, and finance and accounting, and then we compared the data from a seniority levels perspective. And of course, it's not surprising that the highest salaries are paid exactly in IT professions, but what is really interesting that we can see slightly higher salaries exactly in a customer service department compared to finance and accounting department. And this is something I must say unexpected. I really didn't expect such results when we included this question in our survey, but it might happen due to the fact that customer service departments require professionals with some kind of specific language skills, and also sometimes with some kind of specific knowledge in one or another area, and therefore they're ready to pay a little bit more than for finance and accounting specialists. I wouldn't say that this is the situation that we could see in every single business service center, but if we summarize all the data collected, then this is the situation that we can observe. And of course, I couldn't finish my presentation without telling you what's going on with RPA projects. According to the global researches carried out by Deloitte and the Hackett Group, we all have heard that the way how pandemic has impacted the industry is that it really speed up the RPA project implementation process. And this is exactly what our survey shows. We can see that in 2019, only 10% of all processes in business service centers were robotized or automized. And when we look at 2020, already there has been a sharp growth, so to 23%. So it means 23%, almost 1/4 of all processes that we can see in the business service centers are automized or robotized exactly in 2020. And we usually also ask a question, how do the organizations see the future, and what will happen in next 3 years? And here we also saw very, very interesting tendency. In the beginning of 2020, when we asked this question, respondents were saying, yes, that in next 3 years, they will automate and robotize 25% of all business processes. But actually, they managed to do that within 1 year, which we called a pandemic year. So they reached already 23% already within 1 year. And now when we are asking, what are your plans for the next 3 years in the beginning of 2021, the companies are saying that in the period of next 3 years, they will automate and robotize 43% of whole processes. So the percentage is incredibly high, and I cannot imagine what the future will bring us and how in the future business service centers will look like if it will come true. And the last slide is all about the factors, how different factors are affecting business service operations in Latvia. And here I have listed few of them that are more important, where more respondents are saying that they still trying to solve the issue when it comes to those factors. So the first factor that is mentioned here is increased employee mental health problems. And 30% of respondents are saying that this is still a problem that they're trying to solve. And of course, this is not a surprise. The survey was carried out in the beginning of 2021. This was January, and we all know that the January is quite a dark period of the year. And of course, people most probably felt more depressed. They had less sunlight. We all had to work in remote mode. And of course, HR departments were more stressed on what's going on with employee mental health, some kind of how they're actually feeling. But I do believe that in summer season the situation is getting better, but of course more and more organizations are taking care of employee mental health issues and trying to come up with some kind of benefits, how people could tackle the way how they feel, whether they feel okay. Or there is even one initiative carried out by Tieto Evry. They have encouraged a mental health checkpoint, allowing people to check their mental health. Another factor mentioned here is employee and customer data security at risk due to remote work. This, of course, is another factor since people are working from home and taking their laptops home, which means that also all the data is available and might be available to their family members and friends. And I would say this is not a short-term problem. Companies have to come up with some kind of solution that will work in long term, because there will be a growing numbers those people that will be willing to work remotely also after the pandemic will go away. And we can also see as factors outlined here, increased cybersecurity risk. This is another factor, since if we are working remotely or let's say from some kind of cafe, people tend to use sometimes open wireless network. And this is something where we actually give an access to our data and to all the things that we see on our screen to other people, which is totally unacceptable. And of course, organizations have to come up with really strong solutions to minimize the risk here. And the last thing that we can see here, 17% of respondents are saying that they still have this difficulty to manage teams remotely. And this is something that we are learning right now. Most probably some of the companies already have find some kind of solution, what works better, what doesn't work. But again, this is a way of working and of learning, and I believe that with every passing year we are getting more experience how to manage teams remotely. So those are the factors that really affected business operations in Latvia during the COVID time. And this is it from my side. I truly believe that the presentation was really insightful and useful for you. As I said, I only outlined the most important some kind of findings and data from our survey, but still there are many more questions covered. If you want to get more information, please go to our website, which is www.absl.lv, and there you can download our business services report. And many thanks for your attention, and now I would like to give a word to our next speaker, Lelde Kalniņa from Fontes Latvia, and she will tell us more about pay and benefits change in 2021, exactly in business services industry.